We'll call this Porter Johnstown Management Committee meeting to order at 6:30 on September 23rd, 2024. Our Mayor, Tory Deschamps, sends his regrets, and Mr. Kevin Saunders sends his regrets. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda, please? Moved by Mr. Smell. Seconded by Mr. Ward. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure and pecuniary interests and general nature thereof. Do you have any?
None here.
Thank you. Delegations and presentation, there is none. Minutes of the previous Porter Johnstown Committee meeting, July 15th, 2024. I need a mover and a seconder on that, please. Moved by Mr. Martel, seconded by Mr. Ward. All in favor? Carried. Business arising from the previous Port Management Committee meeting, if any. Any business? Okay. Going to move on to 7, and that's the one that was discussing, the month ending July 31st meeting package and questions in August meeting, if there's any. It was canceled. Any questions, comments from our July, August meeting? We're moving right along then. I love this mic too. Let's go to 8, action information item. And who is going to do that? Michael, you are on. Thank you.
The grain operations report, Mr. Chair? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the grain operations report, August 2024, the overall grain inventory was 68,500 metric tons. Wheat shipments are down compared to 2023 and certainly compared to 2022, but corn has more than made up for it. Corn intake has been strong for international and domestic shipments. Traffic for July received 63,539 metric tons of grain via truck. We shipped 5,936 metric tons of grain via truck. We shipped 24,996 metric tons of grain via vessel and no rail activity. We loaded 2 vessels the month of August, the Selena and the Ocean Castle. Unfortunately, we had a recordable in the month of August, which resulted in lost time. Labor was still very good, 2,957 hours for the month compared to 3,368 the previous year. And our quality was an A. And that is the operations report.
Comments, questions, go ahead. Comments, question, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Cameron first, and then Mr. McCauley. Thank you.
Mr. Moulton, wheat's down significantly. You mentioned it. You actually highlighted that in your comments. Just wondering, why is wheat down so much, and do you expect a turnaround in that?
Well, there's lots of different opinion as why wheat is down. I mean, certainly we've heard that input was down 20%. Personally, what I believe in talking to a lot of the local smaller brokers is that they're storing wheat that they haven't stored in the past. They have actually been bins are full of wheat on farm, and that's due to the high prices they're getting in the Quebec for the feed grade. So wheat shipments, although they're still coming in, we're still shipping out, and they can see the value of just keeping it on farm and shipping it from there because they're able to move it and it's not going to sit. That's really what I believe.
Okay, yep. That's reasonable. Thank you.
Mr. McCauley's next, please, and I'll get you, Mr. Stitt. Thank you.
Just a quick note. I believe that's the summary of traffic for August. It's referenced here as July.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley, for catching that. Mr. Stitt, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, through the chair. The recordable, nature of the recordable, so you know names or anything, but just.
That's the question I was waiting for.
Okay.
We have a lifting device that's called the Humphrey lift, and it's an old device that's been in the port many years. It's to travel between floors, between the scale and and down to the ground floor. When it was more manual, they used it a lot, but it's something that has always been there and we've always used. We had a new person in and they went through the training and did a test run on it. And then when they took it themselves, they kind of forgot what to do and panicked at the end when they come up to the floor and decided to jump off instead of just pulling the emergency stop, and fell and bruised their hip. So they had to take a couple days to recuperate. Since then, we've understood how serious that could have been, and realizing that although that is a device that has been used for many years at the port, due to automation, we probably don't need it and rely on it like they used to in the past. So we've actually taken it out of service. It's locked out until we can find a good reason that it doesn't need to be. And at that point, we'll have to, do something to make sure that that can't happen again.
Thanks. Mr. Bolton. Yeah, it's a man lift, right? The belt man lift. Correct. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I know a previous employer, we had to take them all out, right? You obviously can't put them in anymore. So I think that's a good move.
It's actually surprising. It's still an actual company and they do install those
Yeah.
still. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
they're looked upon very nicely by the Ministry of Labor or,
Agreed. Yeah. And that's what we decided, just to,
okay, well,
And
glad
it-
it wasn't more serious than that.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I just,
Go ahead.
yeah, so on the, I guess I was looking at the inventory report, and I think it probably matches with what Mr. Cameron was saying, but you talked about I noticed the inventory is down, I guess, essentially versus last year on wheat, and corn is up. And I was trying to figure out why that is. Is that because we did a purchase or anything? But that's because basically the farmers are holding it back, and that's why we didn't get the inventory, or?
That's how I feel. Just, I talked to a lot of the local guys trying to figure out, what's going to happen for the year. It's a very unpredictable business. You just, you can see it growing all around you, and you just don't know what's going to come in and what's not. But again, just because the feed trade is so strong and there's so much movement going across into Quebec, it's easier that, keep it in their own silo and run it out of there, knowing that they're going to be able to move it.
Okay, thank you. And I did have a comment about the health and safety issue as well, but you took care of it. I was just more worried about, do we have an action we have to do to require us to change documentation, but taking it out of service until we know better is even better. So good job on that. So, it's unfortunate, but
Well, I
we
mean,
learned without a big,
we've been pretty proud of the record that we've had. So that was, something that we were very disappointed in. And yeah, we don't want any more trouble with that. So it's locked out.
good. Thank you.
Mr. Smell, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair, to Mike. I'm just wondering and curious, actually, is the price of corn and wheat better if they take it to Quebec than it is in Ontario? Or would you know that?
That's where the milling and stuff is. That's where a bulk of it is made. So it's certainly better down there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just add to that, it's a commodity and they go by Chicago prices, so it'll have to be in the transportation end of it where there could be a difference in price. I don't think they're getting a better fee. It's a commodity. It is what it is. The price is what the price is.
So now, Mike, is it coming in the grain now? Like, as the farmers trying to get ready for the beans, or are you seeing an increase in grain or no?
Increase, wheat's done. We've been bringing corn in like there's no tomorrow for exporting, and beans have now started.
That's last year's corn though.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of it's actually 2 years old.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe someone
Yeah.
can hold on that long, but anyways, okay, thank you.
I think honestly, we've been 80 to 100 loads a day for a month.
We have one boat loading corn today and another one coming in. Is that right?
That's right. Both corn. That's correct.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So on this, Mike, and maybe it's a conversation for everybody, but so I guess it sounds like we're getting very close to the grain dryer coming online. If I read that correctly, end of this month, it looks like. So have we are we prepared for when that happens, just to be able to start drying? What's it gonna be drying? I guess it's gonna be drying corn or soybeans over there. I guess is the first question.
Only corn.
Only corn.
Yeah. But I mean, if it would have to be something serious for us to have to dry soybeans out there and then try to get them back into the building to ship back to export on vessels.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so that sounds good. So you're already drying soybeans already in grain dryer 1, and number 2 will kick on with corn potentially. October.
Honestly,
rolls
the
around?
beans are coming in right now, and I think we took 100 loads in today, and there was maybe one that was 1.25% over. Yeah, so they're coming in dry.
Good, thank you.
What's dry? 13? 12,
13 and a
13?
half.
Sorry?
13 and a half.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments before we move on? Good evening, Regina. How are you? Okay, we're going to the we're going to the maintenance report, please. And Mike's going to take that. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the maintenance report. Work in the maintenance area during the month included the following. Conducted monthly premise inspections per the GMP, grain handling equipment checks and maintenance during vessel loading. We replaced number 7 lofter belt and buckets was the big job. That's almost a 2-week job. Clean ship loader automatic valves, replaced bearings on the drag conveyor from Annex 1 lofter. Continue modifying dust fan shaft guards for increased personal safety. Fabricate and install removable pins on the bin floor spouts. Replace bearings and motor on drag conveyor to Annex bin 7. GMP maintenance of available Annex equipment. Empty bin maintenance on Annex bin 9. So you can see that the Annex bins are becoming empty. So we're trying to do a lot of PM on them to get them ready for the corn season. Items from the work order log and weekly, monthly dust system inspections and maintenance. The electrical work included the following. Worked with millwrights as required. Service fire alarm horns throughout the elevator. Investigate options for adding conveyor belt start alarms up to conveyors that we currently do not have. Provide electrical lockout training for new casuals. Replace half horsepower motor on top of valve on the Annex bin 2. Run an electrical power supply to new dryer vaporizer pump. And items from the work order log. So the maintenance has been very busy.
Questions, comments on the maintenance report? Go ahead, Mr. Ward.
So with regards to investigate options for adding a conveyor belt start alarms, is it for all conveyor belt starter arm or start alarms, pardon me, or do some have it, or what's we looking at percentage wise there? Is it?
The ones upstairs have them in the bin floor, but they don't in the basement. So we want to make sure that they all match so that they all have the same alarm and everybody knows when they're turned on.
Okay, gotcha. And so, I mean, even just coming off that safety concern from before, I'm assuming that's a bit of a safety, I don't want to say hazard. I'm sure managing it with proper signage and stuff right now. Is that what's going on, or do we just identify that this is an issue we're looking into, or?
With the
Starting with-
conveyors,
Yeah, with the conveyors.
they sound an alarm, but it's not automatic.
Okay.
Yeah. So now it's going to be as soon as. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. Well done. Just to add to that, this is part of the whole inspection report from Labor Canada and the voluntary compliance that I mentioned in my report. So we're starting to look at those areas and investigating them where we're going to have the alarms and so on. So there's a bit of an investigation to take place ahead of time to see where we can put the pull stops on our conveyor system. We can't put them everywhere, and also where we would put the horns and so on. So it's all as a result of this report from Labor Canada and voluntary compliance. And I can talk a little bit more about that in my
Okay,
report.
that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Smell, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Just another curiosity question. To replace this number 7 lofter belts and buckets, what's the life expectancy of them? Like, do they last quite a while or? That's good life. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments on the maintenance report? Mr. Stitt, you're up.
Just one quick one through the chair. Mike, back guarding? We have a program for back guarding and I apologize. I didn't notice when I was there. A few times I've been there, but so in behind the guard itself, you got the guard out front, but in behind it, we back guard. Do we have a program for back guarding?
Are you talking about in response to the guarding we've done around the belts?
Just in general.
Yeah,
in the plan.
it's a cage.
Cage.
Yeah.
Completely back.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Honestly, that's what we're kind of replacing now
Okay.
is with,
Any other questions, comments, please? Okay, we're going to move on to C, the capital project. And Mr. Dolly's going to take that. Go ahead, Mr. Dolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There hasn't been a lot of change here other than some of the financial and some of the payments. We did complete the grain elevator concrete repair. I've got it in orange, the 315,000, just because we're still waiting for the final invoice. So that project's going to end up around, I believe it's 418,000. And the reason why it's over budget, it is a time and materials project, and there was 6 windows left to do at the end. So we wanted them to complete them so we don't start. Once you chip and you have it exposed, you want to complete them. So, within our 5% contingency there, but anyway, so we'll be a little over budget on that. Is there any questions? I don't know that we want to go through every one. We've done it. So unless you'd like that, Chair. I mean, there's not much really to, yeah, I mean,
Go through this every.
I think the key ones I think people might be curious about are the dryer, of course, and that's going to be TSSA is going to do their inspection next week. We're going to be commissioning it shortly after that, and we should be ready to go with the dryer sometime mid-October, somewhere around there. We'll be in time for the corn harvest, that's for sure. On the receiving project that's ongoing, and the building and so on, it's interesting how harvest goes. So we've had years where the old corn from the previous year comes out in the spring, and we have spring boats, and we have a really successful first, second quarter. That didn't happen this year. It's happening now. So we got this extra corn happening, which is welcome, but we do not get the lull that we usually get between the wheat harvest and the soybean harvest. We usually have a 3 or 4 week window there where we can get some things done. And one of them was to put this building up and get it completed. So now we're up against harvest with our building not completed. So we're going to be working with the contractor and finding times when we don't have to stop our traffic because we don't want our revenue affected, but at the same time, keep this project going. So there might be the odd Saturday or weekend, you might see some people working there. So just to explain that part of the project, it's moving along. We're still expecting it to be completed this year. And other than that, if there's any other questions that you have on the rest of the projects.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you. Mr. Daly, just on point number 6, the covered storage bulk cargo harborfront dock. That one, it's big number and it says preparing documents for tender. Just wonder, how's it going on that front and what's the future look like?
Yeah, that started off when we spoke about it before, was to perhaps have a business that was knocking at the door that wanted cover storage. And so we had it added to the budget as a place marker, a hold mark. You might recall that. But we're still waiting for more of a business plan to be developed around usage. And now there's not an individual company that's interested. So we're now looking at the whole project on the whole. Do we really want to go forward with it? And I think what we want to do now is get the building spec and so on. What would be the most beneficial to the port, like a coverall storage that you would be able to, similar to what they do in Ogdensburg at their port, split up into different sections. If you needed different products to go in there, you could even potentially put grain in there. So we're looking at a clear sort of building that would be adaptable to different types of commodities and so on. So what we'd like to do is start speccing that out and looking at what that would look like and come up with some estimates for pricing, and then that bring that forward. That project will not be happening this year. We'll look at it for next year, but we'll start doing some work on the type of building and bring that forward to the committee, and some backing on what we think we could use those that building for and what sort of revenue we think we could generate from it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Questions, comments? Mr. Ward, you're up.
So when I just, as an overall picture, I sort of roughly calculated about $1.5 million out of the $10.1 million that we're actually not going to do this year. And it looks like we're on track to do the bulk of it, which is, I know we had a few years before that we didn't do anything near that. So, so on that, I guess I'm just saying good job on how well that's come along. To be honest, and getting a lot of these improvements done and performed. So thanks for that. And just as a further follow-up to that building, that's what I had as well, is that we were, we were going to have something that was, potentially causing business to have that building. But I'm glad the idea that you have is putting something that's shovel ready, if you will, so that when we do get that business comes along, we can be quicker to react to that. So it's mostly just about comments or compliments, pardon me, about how we've done that. So again, just thanks a lot for that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Counselor.
Go ahead, Mr. Martel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the general manager. Is there any plan when that dryer fires up for like a ribbon cutting or a media invite or anything? That could be a good news story.
That is an excellent point, and definitely we will have to prepare something for that, for sure. Would you like to be involved in that, Mr. Counselor? Awesome. I will make sure. You can bring the scissors. How's that? Thank you. No, great point. We will be doing something, ribbon cutting for that, for sure.
Yeah, just on that comment, I definitely want to be part of that. I don't care about the ribbon cutting, but I want to be part of the startup for sure when it starts up. And TSSA, I was down there today. I guess they're doing a pressure test or Wednesday, I guess. And is Stenson's all done? I didn't have anybody down there. Oh, we'll get to that to another question. So we'll leave it at that. Now, it's everyone else, no comments, questions? No? You're talking about the track shed, is that right? Number 9, when you're saying that we may have people working on the weekend? Okay, because I upgrade this existing garage. I see it's starting and boy, am I ever happy. It is starting, it's in the works. So, is that going to be completed this year, do we think?
I believe so. I'll defer that to Michael, his project.
Yeah, it was actually, they were supposed to be here this week to get going on it, but the crane couldn't make it, so they're gonna. It'll be done. Hopefully everything will be done by the end of October.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And new coverall?
Same thing. It's actually ordered. It's
Mhm.
supposed to be here at the
Perfect. Glad to
September,
hear
1st of
those two
October
projects,
type
especially
thing,
those
so-
2 projects.
yeah.
I mean, 27, it's been in since 1927, I think. I
Yeah.
mean, holy jeepers, it's been long going on that. Thanks. Financial report, who's going to speak on that, Rhonda? Thank you, go ahead.
Thank you. So for the month of August, our revenue was 779,000, which is an increase of 44,000 compared to 2023 and an increase over budget by 79,000. Our expenses, were kept under budget by 44,000, resulting in a surplus of 348,000 for the month, which exceeds our budgeted number for August, surplus by 225,000. Sorry. Exceeds August budgeted surplus of 225,000 by 123 and exceeds 2023 by 12,000. Breakdown of revenue and expenses year to date. Our total revenues, our harbor services are down 99,000. Grain services are down 199,000. Rail services down 92,000, and our leases are up 20,000. For our expenses, our labor and benefits are up 62,000. Utilities are down 94,000. Our overall operating and admin is down 74,000. The bigger ones as part of that are advertising's down 24,000. Office and admin is down 23,000. Materials and supplies is down 7,000. Outside services down 60,000, and insurance is up 27,000. Compared to budget, year to date, the port is well ahead of budget by 488,000 and in great shape heading into soybean harvest. For our management fees, as of August 31st, the port has transferred 666,667 towards the annual payment of $1 million. Our receivables are all sitting at 30 days and under. The receivables are at 899,771. Payables are at 190,094, and our cash on hand is 4,328,177.
Questions, comments, people?
I just, it's, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize you were here. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Stitt. Just on this note, it's really good to see how well we're doing versus the budget. I mean, we're budgeted to be 25,000 over and we're 512,000 over. So whatever you guys have been doing back there to keep the costs down, it's obviously showing now. So so that's really good is all I want to say about that. I did notice that when I was looking at the charts, the I guess in August, the excuse me, the harbor services were way up, and seems like it's a recovery, if you will, back to where we should be. So did we do something proactively there, or was that just I know we talk about sometimes the timing is just what happens, and it's we don't have a lot of control over that. So was that, I don't know if that was proactive or if that was just the way it that the cards rolled out on us?
Of course, it was proactive.
Yeah, good plan. It's because I asked, right?
That's correct. Just ride the wave,
Yeah.
counselor.
Okay, that's good. Like I said, I just wasn't sure. You never know. Sometimes things can happen, right? So, okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Stitt?
No, I just kind of echo what Chris was saying, or Councillor Ward was saying, but I like the expenses piece. Revenue, obviously, that's very important. Incoming is important, but keeping expenses, controlling expenses, that's harder to do, and that's notable. So that's good.
Mr. McCauley?
Recognizing, and again, through the chair to Robert and Mike, recognizing that a month is always difficult as opposed to year-to-date numbers, but it's the third consecutive year that grain services revenue has declined in August. Is that a reflection of anything?
If you look at our year to date or look at our August month, I think you're speaking to August, there's $65,000 less in drying revenue for August. So it's weather dependent. It's dependent on, when the product's going to come in and so on. And so it's quite variable, as Mike was saying. It really changes. What I find really encouraging is the fact that we had a super slow start and a slow first quarter. And now we're actually, total revenue for the year is 3.795 million on a budget of 3.74 million. So we've made it all up on our budget, which is great. And we're getting closer to our last year's numbers, which was a record year, which is phenomenal to me. And with the September we're having, geez, you never know. We might be able to surpass that number. We're hopeful. And so all the great work we've been doing in the improvements and capital projects that the councils and past councils have been improving, it's all for that reason, to expand, to put more equipment, more stores. You should expect your revenues to go up. And everything's there for that to happen, and it's happening. Now, we can't control the weather and we can't control that part of the business. And we are just like the farmers. We're very dependent on that. If you've talked to farmers, I'm sure they're all saying they had record years last year, record yields. And so we had a record year. And so we're very influenced by that, of course, when 80% of our business is agriculture and that part of thing. And we're a little slow on our marine side, but I think we all understand how that works. I mean, it depends where your capital projects are, what location they're in, proximity to the port, and those go up and down too. And you never know, in the next 3 years, maybe the wind energy picks up again and those projects kick off, and we're back to filling our lands with wind energy components. And so I think the best we can do is get in a position, which is what we've done. We're in a position where we can handle more grain, we can handle more drying shortly, and we've got the lands to put the cargo down. So we're in good shape, and I think it's showing, sort of. Thank you.
Questions, comments? I'd like to get back on that. Robert, if you could, like, yeah, I agree we're doing good, but how come we're down 200 grand on grain? Is there a reason? Like, of course, you know, we're short on wheat. Obviously, when you get down on grain services, that affects the rail service too, because we're down 100 grand there too, right? Like,
I'll answer that. I don't think so much the rail, and that's not really connected to grain in any way. A lot of the rail depends on crews and their usage for storage at the port. That's where you saw the, and at the beginning of the year, it was some of the cargo that was still had to go out. As far as the difference in grain services, you're looking at a record wheat year last year. We're not having that this year. It was expected that we would have a lower than a year in the wheat, but now we're kicking in with some corn, late corn coming in. So we're down in 198,000. When we look at our soybean drawing, we didn't have any revenue for that yet this year. We were at 87,000 last year. So we're gonna make some of that up. And just our truck receiving, which is a direct relation to the grain that they're bringing in. And so, in the end, I believe that we're still within shooting distance of making some of that up. I think you'll see a very positive September. And so I'm anxious to for the October meeting to go
Good.
over that.
thank you. Any other questions, comments, people? Okay, moving on, we're gonna go to 8E vessel traffic report.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll take that one as well. Deputy Mayor, sorry. So for the year, we're basically about 20,000 off where we were last year. We can see where we're at with our salt. A lot of it is foreign. A lot of that product's coming from Fairport, which is just Lake Erie area in the US. And normally for Windsor salt, that would be coming in from the Windsor mines. So that's looking close to last year, but we know we're not going to get the amount of salt that we got in last year. Last year was a record year, 650,000. Looking at this report here, I'm seeing close to 300,000. Add 100 to 150 onto that, and I think that's where we'll be this year. 450 would be my best guess. And we're still, if you look, the pile, it's getting quite full. So that's on our the cargoes for the marine part of the business, and just overall vessels, we're at 29 versus 27. We have 2 salt vessels in September, and Mike mentioned the corn vessel, and that we did today, completed today, I should say, and 2 more that we're expecting. So I got that right? 1 more that we're expecting, right? That's arriving tomorrow, I believe. And that's the traffic report.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Questions, comments, people? Traffic report? Go ahead, Mr. Ward.
And it's less about traffic and more about how and I realize that I'm asking you, and I should have probably asked it as a question beforehand, so you had time to respond. So maybe it's something for next month. But I'm just curious as to if we've been sort of measuring how our load times are going with the new automation that we have in place this year versus prior years. I know we talked a bit about it. We had some initial feelings, but I don't know if we have any any feeling about how well that's going as far as the loading of ships is going versus versus what we were doing in the past, that's all. So, like I said, if you can't answer tonight, don't feel you have to come up with something, but.
You want to go 50-50 on this one? I'll start and then
You go
pass it
ahead,
over
yeah.
to you. I mean, we're definitely more efficient. But then you have to look at the type of vessel that's coming in. So, and I know I talk about variables, but the vessel we had, and I'm sure Michael will attest to this, he can talk some more to it, but the last Vectus Pride that came in was able to come in backwards. And their cranes were on the proper side. And this was a Vectus Progress, I believe is the name. Same vessel, but the captain or the pilot would not go in backwards. He said, I'm not going to do that. So he came in frontwards, and that created an issue with us with the cranes on the wrong side closest to the spouts. And then that necessitates more shifts of the vessel, more downtime and more. So it's definitely more efficient. It's just that when you get something like this that happens, and you try to compare that in your numbers, it's kind of an anomaly that you have to point out. It's like taking off your top and your bottom. This is one of those bottoms that you would take out of your overall statistics that you're looking for, because it's very hard to be efficient on that type of setup.
Thanks. I mean, the system is better. We're getting better at all the time. The guys are getting better at leveling. I mean, when people come in to Prescott and they leave, they think, you guys are amazing. The problem is the same vessel could come in July and come back with a different crew in August and take twice as long to load. You know, they take twice as long to shift. They want half a ton here. They want a half a ton there. I mean, we've tried to put metrics together and it just drives you crazy. It's just, there's so many things that are unpredictable.
No, I can appreciate that. I just so it's feeling better. It's just hard to put that
Sure.
into a.
Yeah,
Fair
but
enough. Okay.
when they see the load rates that, when a vessel comes in here and starts the load rates we hit them with, I mean, they're flabbergasted.
Yeah, if you look at purely operational, like we're head over heels faster, definitely. But Mike's absolutely right. We've had crews come in here that they'd rather just stay overnight. They don't really want to go anywhere, right? So you're dealing with that, and we have a certain amount of control or pressure we can put on, and we can let the broker know, and they definitely want them moving out quicker. But that does happen, which is quite amazing. You wouldn't think that. You would think that they're going to go as quickly as you're going, but it doesn't always work that way.
Well, we do have a great township, obviously, so clearly it's us doing our job well. Let council then, son. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Any other questions on the vessel traffic report? Hearing none, we're going to move on to the health and safety report.
I'll take that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
This is the health and safety report for last month. John finalized and issued the draft procedure for management and maintenance on air emission equipment. He participated in planning meetings for the port regarding the port's response. Labor Canada, Robert mentioned earlier, the HNS inspection report, prepared draft and final versions of an assurance of voluntary compliance and a draft notification letter for the safety committee. Conduct an HNS orientation session for the new office administrator. Discuss incident investigation reporting and requirements with the port's general foreman, operations manager, and office manager. We spent some time with us regarding that accident that we had. Discuss scheduling of respirator fit testing and health and safety training sessions for the port operations manager, which we actually completed yesterday, and arranged for rental of the respirator fit testing. Again, we finished that. And that is the safety report.
Questions, comments on the safety report, please? Hearing none. Moving on to the GM report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We spoke to this earlier, the Labor Canada Assurance of Voluntary Compliance. The port met the timeline of August 23rd. Had discussions with the health and safety officer from Labor Canada on the phone. We reviewed our position. And when I say position, our action plan along with our dates. They're agreeable to our response and the dates for completing these actions. And our next steps are to create a schedule which we started to ensure that our timelines are met. That was one of the things that they stressed. And we're informed that there most likely will be a follow-up visit. So everything's moving along. There's, as I was describing earlier, there's some of these areas that they want us to look at, which conveyor belts that were grandfathered in. And I mean, we're going way back in time here, and guarding and emergency stops and alarms and so on. We need a study done on where we can do it and where it's practical. They are accepting to, if something is not practical or doesn't make sense, they're not going to force you to do it. But you have to do a study and define what your project's going to be before you can set times to them on when you're going to complete them. So all we've given them dates for right now on some of the more major projects is when we'll have the study done. So there is no, and they understood that, and I wasn't about to get in a corner with dates when we're not sure how big the project is. So we committed to doing some of these studies by the end of next year, and some of them are sooner. But we, I sat down with the maintenance manager and so on, and looked at what was practical, and they were pushing back a little bit on the phone call, but I gave them our reasoning and so on, and they went along with our dates, and they're good with them. So that's that. I'll go on to the next point. Stevedore update. We received a transformer from Hyundai by rail that will be unloaded on or about October 7th. There's no more steel cargo other than the salt that we have scheduled. Other discussions that we included, loading out grain containers and what would be required if we were to do this by vessel. Also, covered storage building type and size. We talked a little bit about that in our capital project, but I wanted to get the feedback from the Stevedore, because they're the ones that got to go out and sell this building to potential tenants, such as different companies out there from fertilizer like Synagri and so on. These guys are looking for Synagri, I should pronounce it properly, but they're looking for storage and so on. It's just the quantities, we need to put that all together, because there's got to be a payback too, right? And it's not 1.25 million. It's not a drop in the bucket. And if you're looking at someone wanting to use 20, store 20,000 tons and so on, it's going to take a long time to get that sort of payback. So what we're looking at is trying to get some other customers on board with who could use a building of that type, and what would work best for them. What do they feel? I mean, they've got a building in North Gore that they use, Riedel Bulk. So I want to take a look at that and just get some ideas of some different buildings. On the retention pond, we did the profiling of the pond. Flow meter installation, it required some minor adjustments. So that has been delayed, but we'll be completing it in Q4. Lease has been completed and agreed to by our commercial tenant, Master Feeds. The current lease expires at the end of February 2025. So this will be brought forward as an action item to this committee later on, not today. Met with Dali Dust Control to discuss obtaining water from the river during the winter months. We'll be doing some tests on our fire hydrants to see what kind of flow we can expect. We also discussed future plans to repair our dock and plans for unloading their product during that time. So we've talked about this before. I'll be looking at this next year. We do have where our slip is, where we load out grains. On the west side of the slip, the dock's in really bad shape, and we need to look at repairing it. And that just happens in the corner of that slip. That's where the valve system is for unloading calcium chloride barges. So they wanted some input into when we go to do that. They would rather see the valve halfway up the dock. I don't know if you're aware, but right now when the tug comes in with the barge, they have to turn around and come in backwards almost. And it's like a 3-hour process, only because our valve system is at the end of the slip versus where it should be in the middle of the slip. So they'll probably be running some hoses temporarily midway in the slip for now. And then when we go to do the new dock, we just make sure we incorporate that. We would probably put something underground or maybe even above, but that would be in the plans when we go to do our new dock down the road. We're a couple of years away, but we've got to start looking at it now. Met with Ingredion, if there's any impact on the new dryer, they were curious about that, and there is none. Everything's fine. They're very happy with our service. The guys in ops said do a great job for them, so congrats to Mike and Sean and the team. And they're extending our agreement that we currently have with them. Discussion with the CAO on the township's upcoming compensation study and the impact to the port employees. As reported previously, the port is conducting a gender-based pay review as per the federal government, and it was agreed that the port should conduct their own study in 2025. This will be included in 2025 budget and will have to be approved by council. And just a little background on that, back in 2000, I believe it's quite a while ago, 14 or 16, Council of the Day wanted all the township employees and the port employees to be studied together. And we should all be, looked at in the same. And so when I heard that the township was going off to do their own study, then I was a little curious as to that, because it was in the paper and our staff's wondering, well, how's this going to affect port employees? Because normally we're all done together. So we had that discussion and I said at the time it should be separate. And so now we're looking at keeping that sort of separate, because it is quite different in what we do. It's very hard to compare certain positions in a municipality to a marine facility and grain facility. So that's the direction we're going at this point. Met with Cruise Rail, Mike and I, regarding overhanging tree branches and shrubs, creating a safety issue for their employees. So we've arranged some tree trimming. This will include the rail bridge, will necessitate the closure to one lane on Highway 2 for half a day. And so we are expecting to get this completed. I believe this week is the week we're getting it done. And just a final sort of heads up, I didn't have it down here, but I will be going on holidays for 2.5 weeks starting Wednesday afternoon, going to Greece and then going to Turkey. So looking forward to that. So we'll leave contact information and so on. And yeah, hopefully everything will be good there. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Robert. Any questions for, wow. Okay. Get ready. Mr. Cameron, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Respectfully, with regards to your comment on the lease for Master Feeds, you said future date, Mr. Daly. That means that we'll get an opportunity to review the lease as it's going to be structured at a future date and time.
That's correct. Normally what I do with those is I send them ahead of the meeting.
Okay.
Not with the meeting package like we've done in the past,
Yep.
excuse me. So then you'll have a chance to look that over and normally I don't have the actual lease released to the public because it's commercial lease. But we do, you certainly have an opportunity to give feedback on it. We've had basically lease with this company. Oh, it goes way back. We're talking, 40, 50 years. So.
Thank you.
Mr. McCauley.
Picton has announced plans to build a grain terminal. Any thoughts on, it'll be a while before that's up, but any thoughts on what the potential implication of that would be for our business?
That's a great question. I believe what we'll be looking at maybe a slight impact to the port. I don't think a big impact, but you may look at, trucks that are coming out about an hour and a half west of here may go that route instead of to the port. I've talked to different brokers about this. One of the larger ones that are dealing with the port right now, they do not, and who are actually going to be in Picton. They use the port extensively. So their feedback is it should have very little impact to the port. But it is, we should also add to that's why you always have to be looking at improving and making yourself competitive. So you're doing the best service and so on, because when there's that choice to make, you want to make sure they want to pick the port of Johnstown.
Thank you. Mr. Smale, you up?
Mr. Daly, just wondering, like you, in the report here, you're gonna do tests on your fire hydrants. Do you happen to use environmental services from the township? Because they're all equipped for flow meters and everything. I was just wondering. Or do you hire it out?
I believe last time we did have the township involved. Dave Grant was involved at one time. I'll have to get back to you on that.
'Cause they're
Because I
all
know
plugged
he's
for
been
that
involved
stuff.
in the past in it.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of hydrants because, the elevator is not pressurized. It's not heated, so.
Yeah,
know,
but
it's
I know that
basically
they have the
dry.
equipment that can tell you what your flow in is and everything.
Right.
Rather than hiring.
I know that
Right.
we're not hiring anybody for this. It's Dally Dust Control. They've got their own flow meters, so they're gonna hook it up to the hydrant. They're
Okay.
gonna run it through to their tank and they're gonna measure the flow and we're gonna see the flow capacity of the actual pump that we have. We think there's ample and we'll go from there. But thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for the.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Ward, go ahead.
Yes, so Robert, as far as the Labor Canada assurance of voluntary compliance, is there any large health and safety items that we should be expecting that have sort of a significant cost or tight timeline that we have to have an urgent discussion on, or is they're giving us ample time to be able to address these over a generous period of time?
I would say the latter. I mean, I spoke to this already. It's basically the conveyor system,
Okay.
that they're concerned about, right? It's a conveyor system put in the thirties and, there's a lot of things that if you were to, and we have put new conveyor systems in recently and they're all covered and they're all to spec. But back in the day, things were a little different. So again, they're giving us the opportunity to do a study on it first before we commit the times on getting anything done. And in that study, we'll decide costs, we'll decide what makes practical, sense to do, what the timeline will be, and we'll make sure that we bring that forward to the committee.
Okay. Thank you very much. And just a last, just I guess a query, if you will. With regards to the meeting with Ingredion, were you expecting before the conversation, were you thinking there's going to be a positive impact, or were you afraid there's going to be some sort of a negative impact to that conversation?
The dryer and specifically? Oh, no, I didn't think it would be negative whatsoever. He's just, the gentleman we work with is just fantastic. We have a great relationship with him. And, basically he just heard there's a new dryer going in there and there's, if you look at it, you got conveyors going over to it and so on. How's that going to impact, the first two bins where I keep the non-GMO? So that's all we address. And he was, there is no impact and he's fine with that. He loves the service. And, yeah, everything was good. I didn't have any feelings that it was going to be negative.
Okay, nope, that's good. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I needed a mover and a seconder to approve the action information items.
I'll move it, Mr. Chair.
8A, grain operation, B, maintenance report, C, capital projects, D, financial report, E, vessel traffic report, F, health and safety report, and G, GM report. Moved by Mr. Ward and second by Mr. Martell. Call the question. Any comments, questions before? All in favor? Carried. Next on the agenda is the approval of disbursements. Any questions, comments on the approval of disbursements? Everybody had a chance to look at them? Any comments, questions? May I have a mover to move the approval of disbursements? Moved by Mr. Martell, second by Mr. Smell. All in favor? Carried. Council inquiries and notice of motions. Any? Okay, next is Chair's report. I do have a few things here. The first, as we all know by now, we've hired our new GM starting October 21st, 2024, Leslie Dryden, and we'll have a bigger introduction on October 21st on her first day of work. She'll be at the next port meeting then in 2024. And our new GM and our CEO and myself went to an open house yesterday at the Port of Montreal. It was very interesting, very busy. I didn't realize I wanted to get down to see the grain operation, but a little history on that. I didn't realize that the Port of Montreal is 27 kilometers long. So when I looked at ours, I thought it was sort of like maybe a little bit bigger, but not 27 kilometers. So I had a wake up call on that one. And the mayor and myself as deputy mayor had our annual review on our port manager, Mr. Robert Daly, and the report Robert had was very, very good. And I'd just like to thank you for the good score, but for the great work that you've done with us here for the last 16 years and this past year. So thank you, Robert. I'm very happy. And the last one, I feel this is the right way to go, and it has been bothering me. At our next port meeting, we're gonna be voting, we're gonna have our committee will have the right to vote on open session, but not closed session. So you guys will be back on voting, Frank, as you had before. If I get the support from council. But we'll be discussing that next council meeting on October 21st. So that is my report. Any questions from our Rebecca? Any questions from newspaper? I can't
I'm
do
good at
another
that.
interview, eh? Hmm.
Pushing you guys and not doing it myself.
Darn
Through
Okay,
through the chair, no, we have not received any from the public or virtually.
good. And number 13, adjourn. Can I have Mr. Smell? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
As a last thought and a final comment, I would like to thank Mr. Daly and his entire team on behalf of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. It may not be common knowledge to everyone in the room, but on short notice on July 23rd, Mr. Daly and his team hosted a group of about 12 individuals, member services representatives, and a manager from the OFA to do a tour of our fine port. It was the highlight of their stay down here, aside from a boat cruise, which had alcohol. We had no alcohol, but they had a fantastic view. It was a very comprehensive tour and a very informative one. So thank you to your team, everybody here, and those who are not here that participated. It was very well received and greatly appreciated. So on behalf of the OFA and the local zone director, thank you very much. Kudos to the Port of Johnstown and the Township of Fredericksburg Cardinal.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Number 13, adjourn. Moved by Mr. Smell, second by Mr. Ward. We're adjourned at 7:27. All in favor? Quick meeting. Wow, we had.